When it comes to building your own spars, the first thing that you've got to consider is the materials which you're going to be using for it. Ideally, you're going to be using Douglas fir, or if you've got really deep pockets, spruce. Both are very, very good timbers for it, but what you must have is perfectly knot-free and straight-grained materials.
We will make the spars from 2 pieces of wood. The reason that we do this is so that any weaknesses are countered by gluing together 2 sections of wood with different characteristics. Ideally, you should choose 2 lengths from different planks. But if you cut them both from one plank, then simply reverse one piece so that any flaws are not mirrored.
What we want is for the grain pattern to be running at 90 degrees. This is pretty close, probably about as close as we could wish for.
Now we can glue and clamp the 2 pieces of timber using epoxy with microfibers. If you need to make a joint in the timber, then make sure that they are offset along the length of the spar.
We can see that we've got the glue line going along, and that marks the centre line between these 2 pieces here. What we need to do now is to mark off the centre line down the middle of this face. I've preset the gauge here, and I'm just going to mark down the centre line, starting our taper here at 500 from the end of the spar.
Mark all measurements from the centre line out towards the edge of the timber.
It's not much of a taper that we need to take off there, but it is worth doing it just to give it a little bit of grace. We've got here our old friend, a bit of curtain rail. So gently clamp that on right up to the edge. Of the timber, and then at this end bring it on to the line there. Okay, that's that side marked, and we then repeat the process on the other side of the spar. Right, I think we've got that down close enough to the line there. The next thing that we need to do is to mark out the same curve on this planed face so that we're bringing the whole of the mast up to the taper. We've finished doing our planing of the taper there now. You should be able to see that. What we're going to do now is to use a spar gauge to mark off a perfect octagon so that we can start planing it down again.
You can make a simple spar gauge using a piece of wood, 2 pens or pencils, and 2 large nails as shown here. Position the pencil points 10 units apart and the inside edge of the nails 7 units from the points of the pencils. This will give you the correct ratio to produce a perfect octagon. The size of the unit for the gauge we made was 1/2 centimetre. As you run a gauge down a taper, keeping the guide tight against the spar, the gauge will change angle and the correct ratio will be maintained.
We then need to run those lines right the way back down to the point on this spar where in fact it is actually going to be staying square below the mast partners. Once we've finished marking off using the gauge, take this away and plane it down so that we've got our perfect octagon, from which we're then going to work on to getting it into a circular shape. Here's another spar that we've already planed down. It happens to be the boom for the cobble. You can see how it fits into these blocks, which just 90-degree cut. They can be clamped or screwed down onto a workbench to hold the spar securely while you're planing it. The process from here is, having got it to this octagonal shape, is that you then plane each of these points down until you're getting it close to circular, as you can see, with a very, very finely set plane. And you'll be surprised, it's quite a quick process if you can sit down and ignore everything else. The spa took, I think, about an hour and a half to do, from more or less from the start. Then we put the plane aside and get some coarse sandpaper. And what we do there is the same process. So we keep on with that. We go through from coarse to medium to fine grit sandpaper, get ourselves a really good finish, and then we can start varnishing it. And give ourselves a nicely finished spar like this. What we've got on the end here, we've got the deck clip there, bolted through for the out haul. A bit further down here we've got a mark, which is where the main sheet tackle is going to be bolted through. Down at the other end here we've got some cheeks which have been glued on to bring the width out to go around the mast, and then we've got a couple of stainless steel plates which I had in the workshop which go around the mast. You could easily use a piece of heavy duty plywood, 12mm plywood, to replace these. Before you start doing all the varnishing on this, do a trial rig of the boat, because what you really need to do is, with these holes which we've put in the spars, you want to make sure that you can get plenty of varnish down there to protect it. Probably needs even more protection from water than the outside of the spar, because the water, if it gets into those holes, won't evaporate very easily, and if it sits in there, that's where you're going to get rot. So do a trial rig out on the boat before you start varnishing, get the locations of all the holes which you're going to need to drill, and make sure that they're varnished well and truly when you're doing the rest of the varnishing, or painting if you're painting your spars.